Welcome to this week's There's a Book in My Nook. This is week number 5. And the first book that I'm going to be talking about is Poison Princess by Kresley Cole. I've heard a lot of good things about this book, and it's been on a lot of books to read for YA, so I thought I'd give it a try. And I really enjoyed it. It was really different. And this is the story of 16-year-old Evie, and it just takes place in the South. And she lives in a big plantation, but it's modern day. She lives there with her mother. And Evie has just come back from a mental institution, but none of her friends or anybody know that she was there. They think that she went away to some summer camp, including even her boyfriend. She went there because she was having visions and really bad nightmares, and there's a history of mental illness in the family, which includes her grandmother, who used to live with them. She tried to kidnap Evie when Evie was, I think, 7 years old and take her out of state because she said that she needed to fulfill Evie's future. Well, Evie thinks she is going crazy. She thinks that finally at this mental institution they've helped her. She comes home, and in no time she starts having visions again. And to make matters worse, there's a new guy at the school, and his name is Jack, and he just rubs her the wrong way. It seems like he's watching her, and he's basically from the wrong side of the tracks. He's Creole. He lives in one of the Creole huts, and she lives in this big mansion. They have a lot of money, and he just feels like there's something she's hiding. He just thinks she acts really strange, and her friends think he's horrible, even though he's really nice looking. They think, you don't want to associate with him, so forth. And she has this great boyfriend that's supposedly, popular. So Evie's trying to figure out what these mean, and her visions are coming more and more frequently. Well, next thing she knows is the visions that she had are basically about the end of the world. Her and her mom are at their house. There's this huge flash of light, just like in her dreams. She remembers that she had visions where she couldn't look at the light. If you looked at the light, basically, you were turned to ash. It just was so strong of a, radiation. So she takes her mom and they run down into the cellar and lock themselves in. And basically, 90% of the world is destroyed in this flash. And that's what they call it, is the flash. You have before the flash and after the flash. Well, they managed for the next several months to go to all the homes where the people have deceased and get supplies and canned goods and try and make it on their own. One day her mom goes out and she encounters some of the people that were affected by the flash, had radiation, and it's kind of turned them into these kind of like creatures, I guess you could say. They're kind of mutations. And they attack her, and she gets hurt really bad, and to find out she's got internal bleeding. So she's slowly dying.
Are they zombies?
They're not really zombies. It's just like radiation. If you ever seen anything where someone has a severe case of radiation, it's like their skin is bubbly and it fried their mind. No. And yeah. Well, Jack, the guy that she kind of knew in school that irritated her, he shows up one day at her house and he made it. And he had thought that maybe since their house was out in the country and so big, and he knew they had this great big cellar, that maybe they made it too. And he's right. He stays with her, and her mom does end up passing. And he, unbeknownst to Evie, made a promise to her mom that he would take care of her. Well, what Evie wants to do is she wants to get to, I think it's North Carolina, where her grandmother is, because she feels that her grandmother knew about all of this, and that's who can help her make sense of these visions and these voices that she keeps hearing. So this is what the story is. You follow Jack and Evie from town to town. They're fighting off hunger. There is no gas. He's having to try and siphon gas from other vehicles. There's people that are after him. Also, you find out, for some reason, almost all the women died. There's a lot more men than there are women left. So when they see a woman, you can kind of guess that the men try and take her all the time. He's constantly fighting off these groups of rogues that are trying to capture her. So there's a lot going on. She is also finding out that not only does she have visions, she has powers. And when I mean powers, she has the ability to make things grow. If her blood falls on the ground, plants start growing. She has this bond with nature, and there's more to it, but I don't want to give away the entire story. So you find out all this ties together, what the other visions are. There's other kids like Evie too, and she finds that out. It's really interesting. It's very fast-paced. You're constantly, something always going on in this book. There's very slow. And the tension between Jack and Evie is quite interesting too. It's kind of one of those passionate love-hate relationships. That also keeps the story really interesting. So I would definitely recommend this one. It's in the young adult department. And if you like supernatural romances, here's a couple others that I also have found. One is Wicked Lovely. You can see by the condition of this book, it's been well loved and a lot of kids have read this. I read this years upon years ago and fell in love with this series. It's by Melissa Marr, also in the young adult. And this is the story.
Is this the first book in the series?
This is the first one of Aslan. And Aslan can see fae. For anyone who's not familiar with that, fae is another word for fairies. They're not the little tiny fairies. These are fairies that are full-grown people that have powers also, and they live in another kind of like dimension. But if a human can see a fae and they're not fae, the fae will kill them. So her whole life
Is fae plural of fairies, or is
it's
fae
fae.
one?
It's called F-A-E is how you spell it.
And that's one fairy?
That means one fairy or a group of fairies, just that they're fae.
Never heard of it.
It's used in tons of books, and all through. If you look through history, that is the word for fairies. Really,
I probably read it, but didn't even know what I was
Maybe,
reading.
yeah. And if anyone watches True Blood, they even talk about fae in True Blood. So, anyway, so this is the story of Aslan. She's in love with Seth, who is a mortal. She finds out the reason that
Is she a fae?
She's not, but she finds out that she's destined to be with the fae and has like part fae in her. So
Okay.
once it becomes obvious that she can see
So
the
one of
fae,
her parents is a fae?
I'm not gonna tell that.
Oh.
But once they find out that she can see them, it changes everything for her. And I loved this series. It is extremely dark. I will say that there is maybe some disturbing things of some of the fae. There's like basically two groups. One is very dark. They like to torture. There's a lot of things that they do that's kind of disturbing, but it's a really good
So
series.
they prey upon humans?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're very weak compared to them, and they like that.
Okay.
So that's one that's really good. Another one is Evermore. And Evermore is another supernatural romance. And this is the story of Ever. I know, kind of a
Wait a
different.
minute. How many books are in this one?
I'm not for sure how many there are now. Maybe 5.
Okay.
There's
Is this still going? I mean, this is an older series?
I don't think there's been a recent one in the last couple years.
Okay.
There's Wicked Lovely. There's Ink Exchange. There's quite a few.
Okay.
So, and it's got a wonderful romance. Is the reason I
Does
picked
she
that.
age as the books go on?
No.
No?
Well, I mean, she does in numbers, but not really in looks.
Okay.
And then this one is Evermore, and this is the story of Ever. I know, quite an interesting name. And Ever is in a car accident with her whole family, and her whole family dies except for her. Ever since this accident, she can hear other people's thoughts. She wears headphones all the time because she can't drown out the noise. Then Damien shows up. He comes to her school. She feels like she knows him. There's an instant attraction. She finds out they've been destined to be together. Through the years, she has repeatedly died. Damien is immortal, and he has had to watch her die in life after life after life. And this is their story about how they can find a way to be together without ever dying again. So, great. This is also a series. I think there's 4 books in this. I know there's Evermore, there's Blue Moon, there's several. There's even a spin-off of this series about Ever's little sister, I think her name was Riley, who died in the crash. So, a good series. Like I said, a wonderful romance. And I'm sure most people have heard of this, but if you haven't, this is the Shiver series by Maggie Stiefvater. One of the best romantic supernatural series I've ever read. I could
Better than
not.
Twilight?
It's right up there. I mean, it is amazing. It is 3 books. There's Shiver, Linger, and Forever. And this is about shapeshifters. And this is about a girl who, at a very young age, is out in her yard.
Shapeshifters, are those werewolves?
Yeah, but they're not like, they turn into full wolves. They're not like half wolf, half person.
So it's like Twilight.
But those are big. They're not like that. These are regular sized, pretty much wolves.
Okay.
She's out in her yard, and there's no vampires in this. She's out in her yard, and she is attacked by a pack of wolves at a young age, and they're going to kill her. And one of the wolves defends her and saves her. Well, through the years, she has watched this wolf watching her in the and out in the woods. And she knows there's just something special. There's a bond. Well, to find out, he's obviously a boy. He was the same age as her when this happened, and he has grown up watching her. They meet in school, and it's about their romance. She is normal, and he is a shapeshifter, or a were shapeshifter, wolf shapeshifter.
So if Bella would have picked, what was his name? What was the
Jacob.
wolf? Jacob. There's their story.
It's a lot different than that, believe it or not. It really is
Okay.
a lot different. So I really, really loved this series, and supposedly the movie rights have been bought in for this. Maggie Stiefvater's written some great series. She also wrote Raven Boys, which I also loved, and Scorpion Races. She's written a lot of stuff, and I think she's writing a new series actually now. But this series, 3 books, amazing. Actually, my daughter told me about the first book. She had checked it out of her school library and said, "I think this is something you would really like." And
I
she
know
was
Sydney
right.
tried to read it, but she said it was too much like Twilight and she couldn't get into it.
I didn't feel that way. They're total different characters. It's completely
That's when
different.
she was going through her zombie phase. So
Oh, okay, well.
it didn't
it's not
have
about
zombies in it, so
Yeah.
she didn't read it.
Okay, your turn now.
Well, all my month of doing Civil War has ended in, this will be posted on Memorial Day, and that's what the Civil War was all about, and that's how Memorial Day came to be. It actually, in this book right here, it explains all about the history of Memorial Day, and it actually started when 4 women, I believe it was, I forget how many years, shortly after the Civil War had ended, they went to a cemetery in Mississippi, and they put flowers on the graves of the soldiers who had died in the Civil War, and they didn't care whether they were Confederate or Union. And that's how it came to be. It's called Memory Day, it's called Decoration Day, but then it was adopted in 1948 as a national holiday in the last Monday of May. And that's how they believe that Memorial Day came to be. This time, in this last segment of my Civil War series, I concentrated on the soldiers themselves. I've talked about the battlefields, I've talked about the generals, I've talked about Lincoln. Now, this accumulated into stories of the soldiers themselves. And the best book was Behind the Blue and Gray, The Soldier's Life in the Civil War by Delia Ray. And it pretty well said the same story as what was in that Field and Fury by McPhail, I believe
She
his name was.
read another book you talked about last week.
Yeah. Was that the Field and Fury?
No, it wasn't the Field and Fury. I can't think of what it was, but you talked about it last week. It was by
Right.
her.
Anyway, and this time she dealt more with the soldier himself. And I wrote some things down because there were so many things. One of the favorite games that they played was baseball, and I think I already talked about that. But one of the things that they did to pass the time away was they would take lice. Because you got to remember, these people slept outdoors on the ground in a lot of things that most of us would not even dream
Right.
of laying in. Anyway, they had a lot of body lice.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't really do any good for them to take care of it, because then their companion that they were sleeping with in the tent, what if he didn't take care of himself? So it was just passed around, passed around, passed around. Well, what they would do is they would take the lice and they'd put it on a tin plate, and they would wager on which lice would be the fastest to make it to the edge of the plate. And that was one of their pastimes.
Ugh.
Another thing that they did, one of the things is they actually had a regiment where you had to be at least 18 to get into here. And they usually passed 35. They didn't really, but there was a regiment that was of 65 years and older. And the oldest guy was 80 years old. That was in the...
So I think you could even walk with them.
Well, that was the problem. They couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
They usually would get sick.
Right.
And they were called the Graybeards. And it just got to the point where they basically just kind of kept watch for the enemy and things like that. Another thing was, I tell you, my immigrant group were Germans. And here we fought them in World War II.
Right.
And here they are participating in the Civil War, helping us defend against ourselves, basically. And then the next group after that were the Irish. And the Irish actually, there was also a Scottish regiment, and when they showed up to fight, they showed up in their kilts. And the Confederates were even less tolerant of the foreigners than the North was. They really did not like having foreigners in the battle because they felt that this was an American battle, and they didn't think that
They should be fighting.
they didn't think that they should be in it. When the parades were over, when the battle was over and the Union had won, they were welcomed home with parades. When the Southern Confederate soldiers went back, they were shunned. They were viewed as quitters. Everybody thought they gave up too soon. They thought, why are you even back? How dare you even show yourself?
That's nice.
Yeah,
we kind of went through that with the Vietnam
Mhm.
when they came back, and
Yep.
the Korean, that,
Yep.
all these people were mad that they were fighting. And,
Yeah, with the Vietnam War, they thought it was an unnecessary war because they
Right.
didn't think that we really had things. But these people were actually fighting for the South, but then for the South to turn their backs on and say, you quit too soon.
You lost, so we don't
you
want you
lost.
now.
Yeah, you guys are a bunch of quitters. You're a bunch of losers, and why are you even showing yourself? And the biggest thing about the soldier was when they came back, they were so used to being on an adrenaline rush. When they were in the war, when they came back, they could not adapt to the whole humdrum life of just plowing the fields. In fact, when they went to go sleep in their beds, they found their beds to be too soft because they were used to the floor.
Yeah,
they were used to the ground.
Wars.
They couldn't, when they went to, especially the ones in the South, when they went back, their crops were gone. Their
Right.
houses were usually burned. Their families had left because usually the towns were ransacked, and so the families would leave. And so they took them years to find their families. Some never even found their families.
Mhm.
And so it was, it was very, what do I want to say, very enlightening to see how...
It didn't stop at the war. It
Yeah,
continued on.
exactly. And even to this day, you hear people say, a lot of northern people who go down south to particularly Georgia and Louisiana, they're not, if you're from the north, you're not really looked at as, you're a tourist and they put up with you, but they're not really friendly towards you, because the north just has this reputation of, what do I want to say, greedy, taking advantage of people. They feel like the Union took advantage of the South because of all the, what do I want to say, all the luxuries that the North had that the South did not have. So, and then I read, this is in our juvenile department. It's a juvenile nonfiction. This is a juvenile fiction. It's the Red Badge of Courage. It's considered a classic. Let me tell you, I know a lot of people are required to read this, but it is very dry. It is very, very dry.
Yeah.
And what happens is this boy, he's very, very excited to go fight, but when the fighting begins, he runs. And
how old is he?
I forget how, I think he's only 16. I think he's
Okay.
only 16, so he's really too young to even be in it.
Right.
But once again, he thought he was going to get an adventure. He wanted some fun. And when the fun came,
Yeah, wasn't what he thought.
yeah, and he took off running. Well, he ended up meeting up with his old regiment, and he thought that they would learn his secret that he had deserted them. But you'll have to read to find out if he was accepted back into the regiment and how he turned what was an embarrassment into an honor. And then the last book was The Last Brother. And this boy, his brother, was old enough to go in, and he wasn't going to be left at home by himself. So he wanted to go with his brother, and he ended up being a bugle boy. And you wouldn't believe how many, they had 105, 150 different tunes that they learned. One was a
Really?
wake-up call, one was when they were going to go into battle, one was when you went to bed at night, one was a dinner. I mean, it was a bunch of stuff. Yes. And they had to learn each and every one of these. Well, he goes down by the creek and he actually befriends another bugle boy, but he's on the other side. And you'll have to read to see if they were able to keep their friendship or if they had to give it up.
Okay. my next book is actually,
And this boy, his brother, was old enough to go in, and he wasn't going to be left at home by himself. So he wanted to go with his brother, and he ended up being a bugle boy. And you wouldn't believe how many, they had like 105, 150 different tunes that they learned. One was a
Really?
wake-up call, one was when they were going to go into battle, one was when you went to bed at night, one was a dinner. I mean, it was
I
a
didn't
bunch of
realize there
stuff.
was that
Yes.
many.
And they had to learn each and every one of these. Well, he goes down by the creek and he actually befriends another bugle boy, but he's on the other side. And you'll have to read to see if they were able to keep their friendship or if they had to give it up.
Okay, my next book is actually, I'm going to show you a picture because we don't have it here at this library, but you can request it at another library. And this is Pushing the Limit by Katie McGarry. And she's written quite a few romances. And this is not a supernatural romance, this is just a regular romance. And this is the story of Echo. And I shouldn't say just Echo.
Echo, Evermore.
Well, you'll find out the reason why her name is Echo, so it kind of makes sense. I know it's a little strange. Echo and Noah. Okay, Echo has come back to school, and you know something happened to her, but she has no memory of exactly what happened, but she is scarred really, really bad from her hands, like her wrist, all the way up her arms on both sides. And she wears long sleeves all the time. She was really popular until this happened. And you know it has something to do with her mother, who you find out is bipolar, and she has not gained her memory. So she's going to therapy to try and regain her memories because they're afraid that if she finds out from somebody else that she'll have a breakdown, it's that horrific and that she needs to remember what happened. Well, at the same time, Noah, he's also going to counseling because like 3 or 4 years ago, his parents died in a house fire, and he was able to get out both of his little brothers, but not his parents. And his little brothers are they're all in foster homes. He's in a foster home, but he's in a different one than his 2 little brothers. They were kept together. Since he was older, he is not. And he's been in some bad foster homes, and he's in trouble and seeing a therapist because at his last foster home, he beat up his foster father. You find out that he had every reason to do that, but of course the system doesn't see it that way. So he's labeled unstable, and he's trying to go to a therapist to get back the right to see his brother on visitations because they're saying he's unstable and he can't see his little brothers, and they mean everything to him. Well, Echo's trying to get money because her dad has a lot of money, but her dad is extremely difficult, and he only does things he wants to do. And by the way, when her mom and dad split, her dad married the nanny, who is just a few years older than Echo, and she's pregnant. So
The nanny or Echo?
Not Echo, the nanny.
Okay.
So she lives with her dad. There's a restraining order against her mom that her dad got, so she can't even see her mom. So it's screwed up. Her brother went to Afghanistan, which is the one person that she could confide in, and he was killed in Afghanistan. So she's trying to get enough money to fix up his car. He left it there, and that had been his dream when he came back to fix up this car. So she wants to fix it up to be closer to him, his memory. So to make money, she starts tutoring Noah because he's having trouble in one of his classes. And that's how she's making money. Well, they start becoming friends and more than friends, obviously, and fall head over heels in love with each other. And it's how they're trying to help each other through these really bad times. She's trying to get her memories back, but what she finds out is devastating about what really happened to her. Plus, everybody in school doesn't know, and they think she's a cutter, and they all make fun of her and everything because they think she tried to commit suicide or cut herself, and that's what's wrong with her arms. Even one of her friends won't even hardly have anything to do with her because she thinks that if she hangs around her, she'll get a bad reputation because now she's not the popular girl she once was. And Noah, let's face that he's not exactly Mr. Popularity in the school. He has a big chip on his shoulder, and a lot of people don't like him. So it's kind of their stories, finding out what really happened. And you find out the house fire that Noah got his little brothers out of, there was more to that story also. I really liked this one. I'm not much into reading too many contemporary romances. That's not really my thing, but I thought I'd give it a try, and I did like it.
I don't know, seems like all your books are romance.
It's not contemporary.
What's the diff?
Contemporary means now it's set in today's time. There's no supernatural. It's just a straight.
Just ordinary people?
Just ordinary people, straightforward romance. That's not really my thing.
Okay.
I like fantasy, sci-fi, horror. That's more of what I prefer. But I thought I'd give this a chance. I'd heard good things, and it's called. And this is actually like there's a whole bunch of pushing the limit books. They're different and they're all connected. There's one after this one that we do have called, I think, Dare You To, and it's the story of Noah's foster sister Beth. So each book kind of follows.
How many books are there?
I looked up and I think there's 4 or 5, and they're not about the same people, but there's a connection. Do you see what I'm trying to say? And then there's another book that's about his foster brother Isaiah. So it just kind of follows. Oh, and there's another one about her best friend Lila. Not the best friend that's bad, but the best friend that supports her. So it just kind of takes all the characters from this one and they kind of branch out into different stories. I haven't read the others, but this was the one I read. And if you like romances, this is a great romance. I thought the relationship was extremely heartwarming and sweet, and I can't imagine what they had to go through, both families. Unbelievable that people can do things like that to each other, that's for sure. And especially someone that, you know, your mother, that is supposed to be the one person looking out for you and protecting you. And then her dad isn't too great in this either. So, I mean, she's kind of on her own. Her brother died. So, I mean, you can understand why she would have some issues. And the same thing with him.
Oh, so he died over in Afghanistan?
Yes.
Oh,
so it's just her, and she lives with Ashley, who is the new wife.
And how old is she?
She's 18. She's a senior.
And she had to go into foster care?
No, he went into foster care.
Oh.
He's just getting ready to age out of the system, and he wants to get custody of his brothers.
Gotcha.
Who are still in the foster system.
Gotcha.
So that's what this one's about. If you love romance, I think this would be a great romance to read, a good summer read, like beach read, or when you're on summer break, I think this would be a good one. And other good romances that I was kind of looking through, this one's got a lot of hype. It's called Perfect Chemistry by Simone Achilles, and we have this one, and there's a couple in this series also. And it's about Brittany, she's a cheerleader, and Alex is a gang member. And it's about their story and how they connect and their different societies clashing, kind of. So that's got a lot of good reviews. And Gail Foreman, love her books. I mean, you've read If I Stay and what's the second
Where
one?
She Went?
Did you read the second one yet?
I have not read it
Okay,
yet.
but the first one you agree is very good.
Oh, very good.
Yes, and so I haven't read this one, but the way she writes, I can't imagine it's not good. It's got wonderful things. So this is the second one. The first one is Just One Day. And this is all takes place in 24 hours in the first book. The first one was checked out, so that's why I grabbed this one. The first one is Just One Day, and it's about, I can't think of what the girl's name is. Let me find it here. Let me find it. Allison. And she is, for 3 weeks, she went overseas to another country. I don't know if it's France or Italy, because I said I haven't read it yet. And on the last day before she goes home, she meets this guy, Willem, and they kind of connect, and he dares her to go on a 24-hour adventure with him before she goes back home. So it's about what happens to her totally out of character decision to run off with this guy for just one day and be totally out of character for her.
So is it the
And
same
this
guy?
is the sequel, and this is called Just One Year. And this is after, I guess, Just One Day. This is the following year, what has happened in their lives after they've parted,
Oh,
after they were together just that one day.
okay.
So,
Is there a third book?
no, so far just these two, and I think that's all there's going to be.
Oh, okay.
She kind of likes to write 2 books instead of 3, if
Right,
you noticed,
right,
which I
right.
kind of like that. I kind of like that.
There's an end.
Yeah, there's
It doesn't go on.
So
and on
yeah,
and
so
on.
this is on my list to read is these 2 books, and like I said, I loved her other series, so I'm sure this would be a good one too.
Okay, finish up with movies. I went on a bunch of websites trying to find out what would be the best movies to watch for Memorial Weekend. And of course, the #1 movie was Saving Private Ryan. This has to do with, there is a private, I think his last name's Ryan.
Yes.
He's one of 5 boys in a family. His mother has just been told that all 4 other sons have passed away.
And who plays? Isn't it Matt Damon? Am I right?
Matt Damon, yes,
Matt
I
Damon,
believe
thought
it
it
is,
was.
yes.
Uh-huh.
And it has gone all the way up to the top, and they have been instructed, since she has lost 4 of her boys, that they are to get Private Ryan out before something happens to him and she's left with no sons at all. So it is up to Tom Hanks and his group, and he picks the best of his what do you call it, regiment,
Right.
fleet, whatever, I don't know.
Mhm.
Anyway, to go out and find,
Platoon, isn't that what it is?
yeah, platoon or,
Yeah.
anyway, to go out and find Private Ryan. And you'll have to watch the movie because they do find Private Ryan, but it's not the ending that you thought it would be.
It's one of
you'll-
my husband's favorite movies.
Yes, it is. It's like got a rating of like 8.6 out of 10. It's probably one of the most highest rated movies I've ever
Yeah,
watched.
he loved this movie.
Yeah, it's very good. It made me cry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The second rated movie was Platoon.
Mm-hmm.
This movie was okay. I mean, it is amazing to me, and I'm trying to think of how I can say it without spoiling it. The thing about this that was so shocking is some people get so caught up in the war that it doesn't matter who you're fighting.
Well, I
You're
can
not
understand.
always fighting the enemy,
Right.
you know, and so you'll have to watch to understand what I'm talking about.
I understand what you mean.
hmm And then the last one was Flags of Our Fathers. And it has to do with this picture of them putting this flag up. It's the story behind this, and it's not what you think
Right.
it is. You'll have to watch, once again, to find out exactly what I'm talking about. But it talks about the personalities of these guys, and you'll have to see what they thought about this picture when it was taken. It was interesting. I didn't really like the movie,
Really.
but it's kind of, what do I want to say, an eye-opener as to, once again, it has to do with the character of the soldiers when they come back from this war.
Right.
And, some of their, what do I want to say, some of their, I can't think of the word that I'm trying to think of. But the way they react to when they come back, it's not always patriotic, they're
Right.
not always thrilled by what they had to do when they set out for it. They go thinking they're going to do one thing and they end up doing something different, and how the country views it and how the country uses it for their own propaganda kind of infuriates some soldiers as to actually the cause of what was going on. But those were the three movies that were
Finish off
recommended.
your patriotic.
And I am done with the Civil War. I feel like I'm an expert.
Do you have a theme for next month picked out, or are you waiting?
Well, next month, I'd already done the flags because Flag Day is June 14th, and I'd already done the flags when I talked about
Right.
patriotism. Soon, July 4th, will be the Revolutionary War.
Oh, is that what you're gonna?
So that will be my next thing, starting about the last 2 weeks of June. I'll talk about the Revolutionary War, but I think the next week I'm going to do what's new, or what do I want to say, what's popular on the bestseller list of the New York Times bestseller list, and give you guys some tidbits as to some of the books that are being featured on there, and let you guys decide. And also top movies that are being rented. Instead of me watching movies that were box office hits, I'm thinking I should watch movies that people are renting the most.
It's not
And-
always the same, right?
Right,
Mhm.
right. Like one of the movies I just got done watching was The Legend of Hercules.
Mhm.
And it got a horrible, horrible rating, like 4.6 out
Right.
of
It
10.
did.
But I loved it. I
And that's
absolutely
who played the
loved
new
it.
Hercules?
These are people I've never even heard of.
Really?
But they were talking about how in this day and age, how the special effects should have been way more spectacular than what was
I
there.
kept thinking Hercules was played by the guy from Twilight,
Twilight?
Kellen Lutz.
It could be. I don't know. You mean he played one of the vampires?
Yeah, he played the brother.
I kind of thought he looked familiar.
I think it might be Kellen Lutz.
'Cause he has blonde
I'm not
hair,
Sure
he has
on that.
blonde hair.
Yeah, I think it's the one brother he played. I can't think of his name. I know that's horrible. He played Edward's brother. He was
Yes.
He was married to Rosalie.
Yeah. I know what you're
Yeah, I
talking
think
about.
that might be him,
Well,
but I'm
if
not for
it's
sure.
him, because in Twilight he was very small. In this
No, in
movie,
Twilight he was really big built.
was he?
Yes.
Oh, he was the big one. Oh,
Yes.
okay, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, he was
yeah,
big
he's
built.
huge in this movie. I mean, huge.
Yeah, so it might be him, but I'm not for sure. But I thought
Yeah.
that's what I had read somewhere, if it's the same one.
And of course, at the time, the #1 movie that's being rented right now is The Hobbit. So
Mhm.
that's going to be my next book I'm going to read is The Hobbit, because
And I have no idea what I'm doing. I'll be honest. I don't know what I kind of go with what maybe one of the kids will say, hey, read this, and I go for it. Or we just got in like 40 new books today. We have a Pinterest account, by the way. You can also look at if you go to the Danville Public Library. I guess just go to Pinterest and put in Danville Teen Space. We have a Pinterest account. We need to put a link on. I need to tell
What,
them.
you put up popular books?
Yeah, I put up the books I want to read, books Brooke wants to read, our favorite picks, and we also put all new arrivals for the young adults. So as new books come in, and we just got in 30 to 50 of them in today. I have not added those yet, but I will start doing that in the next couple days. You can always go on there and see what new books we've got and which ones we like. So I might be seeing what came in today and picking a couple of those.
Well, I
So,
do have to admit, when I thought of The Hobbit, I thought, I've heard a lot about The Lord of the Rings.
loved Lord of the Rings.
You did?
Oh, loved it, loved it. I was one of the ones that was at the theater.
Even though The Hobbit is the prequel,
The prequel,
to The Lord of
mhm.
the Rings, yeah. And that's what they've done with these Hobbit movies that are coming out. They've taken The Hobbit and broken it into
apart,
3
'cause
movies.
It's so long. Mhm.
But one of the movies has to do with the last part of The Return of the King, which is, I guess, is the 3rd book in the Lord of the Rings series. So it does
Yeah.
have something to do with that.
I loved Lord of the Rings. I was at the theater I know, call me geek. I was at the theater the night that they opened each movie.
Really?
Oh yeah, like midnight I was
It is
there.
one of those series that I have prolonged. I've tried to put
Oh,
off as
loved
long as
the
I
books
can.
And loved the movies.
I hear they're long.
They're long. And for me to sit through
like 700 pages long.
yeah, and I don't do long movies. My husband will tell you I'm horrible at that, but I loved Lord of the
But
Rings.
they say the books are long.
The books are long, the movies are long. The only thing about the movies that drove me crazy, there's no stopping point. You're just watching, you're into it, done. They don't cut, until it's time for they just cut it completely off in the middle.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of times they try and tie up ends
Right.
before nope. They're just walking along doing something, end.
So, did you find, though, does the movie follow the book pretty
Mhm.
closely?
I thought so. I thought they did a wonderful
So, do you
job.
recommend, should I watch the movie first or should I read the book first?
I always read the book first. That's just me. I
Right.
think if I read the book first, there's always so much more in books
Right,
than movies.
right,
there just
right,
has to
right,
be.
right.
So if I read the books first,
But then
and
I'm
for
always
me-
so disappointed.
And see, for me, it's the opposite. It's like I can fill in all the blanks of the movie because what's in my head, I'm like, oh, okay, that part's not there, but I know what
Oh,
happens.
Okay, yeah.
See what I'm trying
right,
to say?
Right.
Where if I watch the movie first and then I read the book, the whole time I'm reading the book, I'm like, that didn't happen. I don't.
Okay.
But I know people who love to do it the other way around.
Right.
They love to watch the movie and the book. I'm always the book. In fact, there's a couple books being made into movies that are coming out really soon,
Mm-hmm.
and like.
Fault in Our Stars does not look good to me.
Oh, see, I think it does.
Mhm.
And my daughter can't wait to see it, and I've not read the book yet, so I've got to read it. But I did read If I Stay, and it's coming out this summer. So,
If I say, yeah, I read that.
and
Okay.
so I will watch that. And then Divergent, I read the book first, so yeah.
Did you see the movie?
I
yet?
haven't seen the movie. I'm waiting for it to come out on DVD.
Hmm.
I don't go to the theater very often. I usually
don't
watch
either.
them
I
on
refuse to pay the
DVDs.
price.
Yeah. And I just don't have time. I get
Well,
off,
that.
like getting off work so late.
Well,
but
see,
I
and The
can-
Book Thief was another one.
But see, I liked the movie The Book Thief. I really did. I know you weren't that thrilled. I liked it. Me and Bree both liked it. So,
My daughter absolutely just refused to even watch it.
so you'll know she liked it. But
I mean, she
But I liked it.
liked the book so much that she did not want to watch the movie and feels like it would kind of spoil it for her.
yeah, I'm not like that.
Yeah, I guess. To each his own.
Each his own. Well,
Yep.
okay. Leave us some comments. Let us know if you're liking the new format. Let us know if you'd like to see any books or movies for us to review or a certain theme. Let us know. And we'll see you next week for There's a Book in My Nook.